Hello everyone, I'm Scott Davenport, and I'm here today to add some artistic drama to a scene with a focus on creating a dynamic, surreal sky. And we're going to use the Perfect Photo Suite to do that. On a recent sunrise shoot, the clouds were really trucking across the sky, and these shots here are about 4 to 5 seconds apart. The clouds weren't picking up a lot of the color in the sunrise, but I thought it might be interesting to play up the motion in post-processing and take the photo in a more artistic, dreamy, surreal direction. So let's get started. First, I'll send these 3 photos through the suite using Perfect Batch. I need to add some more punch to the sky. Using Perfect Batch automates the process of applying the same treatment to each photo. It works in a top-to-bottom flow and is quite self-explanatory. When running as a plugin, the start of the flow is the selected items, the photos I selected in Aperture and sent to Perfect Batch. I want each photo to go through Perfect Effects and have a preset applied. From within Perfect Batch, you have access to all your presets. And I'll select the dark and moody preset I created that I know will work well for this image. Lastly, I want round trip as the save method. This will save the processed images back into Aperture. Click OK, and let the tools crank through the images. Once back in Aperture, it's very easy to tell which photos have been processed through Perfect Batch. The skies have a lot more drama, a lot more punch to them. The next step is to bring these images into Perfect Layers and blend them together to create a sense of motion in the sky. I'll select these photos, right-click, and choose Open as Layers in Perfect Layers. Each of the files is opened as a layer in a single document. When you get into layers, at first glance, you'll do a double take. There's 6 layers, but I only selected 3 photos. Remember that each of the photos pushed through Perfect Batch applies a Perfect Effects treatment. The photo suite creates a layer when applying effects. We have 3 pairings, an original photo and a layer with my dark and moody preset applied, for a total of 6 layers. Now I'll move the layers treated in Perfect Effects to the top, and making sure they're arranged in a sensible order so that from top to bottom, the clouds move in a natural pattern. So this order here, good, we have the clouds moving to the left. Let's get into blending. I'll first select the top 2 layers, and you can select multiple layers using Command-click on a Mac or Control-click on a PC. We'll lower the opacity of these layers to about 70%, and we can start to see these different cloud layers flowing together, creating this motion. Now let's change the blending mode. The blending mode is often overlooked, and playing with the various options can yield some very interesting results. For these photos, I like the overlay mode. So I'll do this again for the middle layer, and yeah, this is already looking pretty darn cool. I do have some dust spots to clean up, but for now, let's create a new stamped layer that encompasses all 3 of these adjusted layers with Layer, New Stamped Layer. So the sky is looking good. Now we have to fix up the obelisk in the buildings. To fix up the building, first I need to isolate it. I can either mask the building in or mask the sky out. By using one of the original exposures, the more uniform gray tone of the sky makes masking the sky out easier. So let's do it that way. I'll grab the masking brush, set the opacity at 100%, and turn on the Perfect Brush. Now, drag around the obelisk, keeping the crosshair outside of the architecture and just on the sky, and we'll start revealing that dramatic sky we have beneath it. When I'm doing masking like this, I like to display the mask in red. This way I make sure I don't miss spots or accidentally bleed into an area that I don't want to mask away. In this case, the architecture. As I get closer to the little nooks around the building, single clicks work very well to target the areas to mask away. Now, watching me mask out this sky is going to be like watching paint dry, so let me accelerate the video through this, and we'll come out at the other end with a nice mask. All right, let's turn off the red overlay, and voila, the surreal impressionist sky is back and the architecture is starting to look normal. But there's more work to do. Now the top layer is just the obelisk and the building. We'll take that into perfect effects and do some more filtering on it to make it better suit the dreamy sky. I'll start with my absolute favorite filter, dynamic contrast. Play with the medium slider here a little for some oomph into the columns. That's good. Now let's really match the architecture with this wild sky. A glow filter will work nicely here. I need something lighter, and a Hollywood glow is a good one for that, and that's a little too much. Let me dial back the amount. That's looking good, except the top part of the obelisk is still a little bright, so we'll grab the masking brush. It's automatically in paint out mode. Lower the opacity down some, perfect brush turned on again, and we'll swipe through the obelisk to tone down that glow. Lastly, for a little extra pop, just a touch of clarity, I'll add a tone enhancer filter, select clarity, and dial down the strength a bit by adjusting the layer opacity. Cool, that looks good. So let's apply these changes and go back into layers. So where are we now? The top layer has our architecture. The next visible layer has the sky. I like to keep the layers I'm actively working on at the top, so I'll drag the sky layer up one notch. Now for the finishing flare. With the sky layer selected, launch effects again. This time, the filters will only affect the sky, and we're going to make the sky dance. Grab a blur filter, and you can see here the sky is the only thing being blurred. A radial blur is going to work awesome here. The lower left of the filter options, I can set the center point for the radial blur right at the base of the obelisk where the sun is peeking over the horizon. We'll dial back the strength of the effect a little bit, and that's looking good. There is a little bleeding into the obelisk from the blur, which we can eliminate with the masking brush. We'll grab the brush. It's in paint out mode already. 100% opacity here is fine. I don't want any blur in the obelisk. Perfect brush is on, and we'll sweep through the obelisk, wiping away that blur. Yeah, I like that. Click apply and lock those changes in. So back in layers, again our top layer is still the architecture, and the next one down is the sky. I'll merge the top layer down, and now we have our final image. So I started with a set of images that looked like this, the clouds moving from image to image, and having some fun and running a little wild with the blending modes, and the effects came away with this. Just a lot of fun. It's just, an artistic expression of this particular scene on that day. So play around with the suite. Explore the tools, try different blending modes, play around with the filters, and you can create some very, wonderfully fun artistic effects. I'm Scott Davenport, and I hope I'll see you again soon.